Hi everyone, this is part 4 of session 4 of Frequency Bone Summer Music Connection 4. And in certain circles, the number 4 is the number of cycles. You can look at it very practically. A month has 4 weeks. There's a lunar cycle, and many times, of course, in a school year, they have 4 quarters, a lot of the time. And there's a lot with the number 4 that's very interesting. 4 chambers in the heart, just to name a few. It's and look at common time. It's called 4-4 time. Very interesting, actually. But one of the things I was going to bring up with the fact that there seemed to be a cycle happening in these 4 videos is the last video that was made. You can really tell the difference between I'm playing Tannhäuser in the beginning, and then all of a sudden I start talking about the eagle. And all of a sudden everything changed, just like I was talking about with the power of thought. So whether my Tannhäuser in the first part of the video isn't right, it's an example. And the second one should be a very clear difference and proof of the potency of what we think about and what it does to our process. Very, very important. So that's very, very key in that video. Because to tell you the truth, today I've actually been tired, as I pointed out. So it was great to make this a series on endurance. Also, I realized that my blood sugar was actually low. I hadn't eaten in much longer than I thought, and that was starting to get to me. And as soon as I started to kick in with that feeling of the flight of the eagle, it left me a bit. I have eaten since then, because it's been, I don't know, maybe since 3 hours since I made that video. I didn't even know I was going to make another video, and of course, my wife, who you've met on the interview extras, and you'll meet again, Dr. Carol Vieira, she said, "Oh, make another one." So here I am, talking about the process and working on endurance, just like working on any other aspect of playing, is a process. If people can get that as an attitude, it should ease up on their frustration that, you know, bound to happen, bound to occur. Okay? So, endurance, stamina, all these things we're confronted with all the time. We really are. How can we endure a school year? Someone says, "I can't take one more day of this." Which is another important part of endurance when you're practicing. To be aware of, not only physically when you need to stop, but mentally when you're not actually processing anything else that's going to glean something from the practice session. So you have to know when you're actually filled up and you can't take any more in. And this, of course, can develop so a person not only has more physical stamina, but more mental space to be able to process more and more. You see what I'm trying to say? So look at this series of videos and look at the whole summer, and anything you see me with is the process is every bit as important as the so-called product. Okay? But you will, if you, number one, know your body, know your mind, know your emotions, know when you're filled up, which means then knowing when to stop, which is a part of discipline, which is a part of endurance, because you have to endure the fact that you can't continue, even though maybe emotionally you want to soldier on, but to use good judgment and say, I got to stop now. And sometimes just a 2-hour break can make a big difference. And also, when you're working on endurance, there might be days where you go, oh wait, I need to be doing this. I just can't be playing loud and high today. I actually got to work into the mid-range. I also might need to look more into legato, more into my soft playing. This will also guide you, if you go by your feelings, about what you need to do next. So then on the days where you say, okay, I'm going to play my recital all the way through, or I'm going to play my audition list or my jury all the way through, be prepared to do that. Make sure that you have eaten enough, that you're awake enough, that you're fresh enough, as best as you can to do it. That is very, very important. Now, I was just mixing things up a little bit. Had a little interlude of music in the midst of my speaking. But one thing that's very important is the concept of endurance encompasses the whole of you. That is the musical approach, because you are a one-person orchestra, and therefore you have to take account of the individual members within your orchestra. Right? Maybe your mind is conducting it. Your concepts, your mental concepts could be governing, orchestrating your practice sessions and how you work on anything. So there's all sorts of kinds of endurance. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be doing an interesting concert in Williams Hall this fall at New England Conservatory, October 2nd. And it's going to be called a Think Concert. And I think the title of this Think Concert will be Alone Together. Now that could change. But you know what? The audience, their staminas might be tested in this Think Concert, because they'll have to be involved. So the greatest endurance is your ability to endure, put up with, your unfortunate aspects or aspects that get in the way of what you say you want. Isn't that interesting? Or, even at the physical level, how are you mentally going to endure the fact that you want your corners to be stronger? There's all sorts of people you can go to for that, to build up your corners. I have many, many exercises to build up people's corners. And a lot of it is keeping your embouchure in place and taking breath through your nose. That's a great way to try to do it. Take an etude and do that. Whether it's a Bordoni, a Beach, a Boutry, Charlier, Arbens, Bona, Koprash, a solo. Very interesting thing to do. And that's one way to build up this kind of endurance. Also, making sure you're not using too much mouthpiece pressure, but make sure you make the seal. That's something that's to be found for each player. Know when you can back off of that mouthpiece pressure. Save it at certain points to add a little bit. This is all part of endurance that actually has some thought and some planning in it. Okay? So these, instead of the practical exercises, are more in your mental concept, how you're working on your long tones, how you're working on your scales, how you're working on your volume and your range, and your varied types of articulation. All this has to do with you knowing you and being in the discovery of that. Having enough personal endurance to be able to be in that discovery process. And then start applying the bits of knowledge that you've heard or gleaned from elsewhere. But most importantly, from your own process. Very, very important. So thank you for your endurance, for listening to this probably not what you expected series on endurance.